What's up everyone and welcome to the Draft Dynasty channel. This is the video you've been waiting for. So many people ask me about my ranking. It took me a while to put this together, but here it is. I'm going to do the top 31 best player of this draft, so the first round. And this year again, I'm not going to include the goalies. Maybe next year I'm going to try to dig deeper on goalies, but for this year I decided to remove them of my ranking. Before I start my ranking, I just want to say a big thank you to all the subscribers. We're now at 9,000 subscribers, pretty crazy. And I'm just happy that I'm able to share my passion with hockey with all of you guys. And all the feedbacks are always positive in the comment. And now we're getting at the time that I'm starting to notice the same people that are coming back to each and every video. I'm just happy that we can learn and discover new player together. Alright, so let's start this thing. So at number 31, I have the tall Sweden defenseman William Wallinder. And he's a player that I'm not super in love with. But the thing is, he's tall, he's one of the best skater in the draft. And most noticeably, it's the agility. At his size, it's very rare to find a defenseman with that type of agility. And he reminds me a little bit of Philip Broberg from last year. Tall defenseman, great skater, but in the end, not really good offensively and not really good defensively. So it's definitely a work in progress. He's a guy that's gonna take probably 3-4 years. You're gonna need to be patient with him, but if he puts it all together, the upside is really high. And like I said earlier, if you want a tall defenseman, elite skater, there's not many available in the draft, and usually they're gone pretty quickly. So you gotta take the good and the bad, and I feel like at 31, the upside is high enough, and I would be fine with him. At number 30, I have Mr. Luke Evangelista, and this is a player that took me a bit of time to warm up on him. At first I wasn't sure what to think, but the very first thing I had in mind when I saw him is, wow, this guy looks like a pro. And I think the reason why is because he's a very smart player. He doesn't make many mistakes on the ice, and he's a guy that you can rely on him. He's gonna adapt to everything you throw at him, and usually I'm pretty good at finding stuff that a player needs to improve. But with this guy, I gotta admit, he's pretty sharp at everything. There's nothing major that he needs to work on. It's gonna be more a matter of taking the whole package and bringing everything up. So that makes his floor very high in my opinion, and also his ceiling. I think since he was buried on a very good team in London, he wasn't getting quality power play time. I think there's a whole lot more offense in his game that we haven't seen yet. So don't be surprised if this guy explodes next year. I'm gonna predict that once he becomes the go-to guy on that team, he's gonna do everything: power play, penalty killing. He's gonna be good at 5-on-5. So he's gonna explode next year, and that's why I have him so high. And for a guy late first round, there's not many players that I consider have a high floor and also on top of that a high ceiling. So he kind of gives you the best of both worlds, and that makes him an extremely safe pick. At number 29, I have left winger from Sweden, Emil Heineman. And this guy is coming from nowhere. Last year, he was a fourth liner playing in junior in Sweden. And this year, he had a crazy good year and he finished playing in the SHL. And not only he was playing in the SHL, but he was looking pretty damn good at the pro level. So if this year is not a fluke, he's gonna be playing in the NHL in no time at this pace, at the way he's improving so quickly. Usually my strategy in the draft, I like to target players that I think have a great chance to be top 6 player. With this guy, I would say it's more about a safe floor, and he's just so versatile. It's the kind of player the coaches are gonna like. You can do a lot of things with him, but his ceiling is not that high. I don't think the package offensively is that great. He's a super good skater in a straight line. He's got a great shot. He can finish, but the stick handling, the passing ability are just average for me. So the package is not super high end, but the number one reason why I like him so much, it's because he's one of the best in the draft at forechecking. So putting pressure, being the F1, finishing is it. He's pretty strong physically. Whenever I have a player with limited ceiling, I want him to be special at something, something that not too many players are good at. And that's the beauty in hockey. It's a team game, so you cannot have all your players to be the same, offensive-minded. You need different type of player, and I really think Heineman is the perfect fit to play with some maybe smaller players that are good offensively but lacking defense. Heineman is very solid defensively, and he's gonna be there to make room for the smaller player, create some turnover, some loose puck, finish hits, and he also have the shot to finish as well. So who knows, maybe he's not a top 6 player, but he could fit with some more offensive-minded player and be the perfect fit to play with those guys. At number 28, we probably have one of the biggest surprise yet, center Mavrik Bourque. And he is a player that I saw play quite a bit last year, and I was not super impressed with him. And this year, I gotta admit, he improved a ton, especially skating-wise and also playmaking-wise. So he really stepped up his game. Scoring, he was always a pretty good finisher, good shot, accurate shot. So now the package offensively is pretty elite. And if we're only talking about pure talent and skill, he should be much higher than 28. I think he's clearly a top 20 in terms of skill and talent. But you're gonna see during all my ranking, for me, one of the most important thing, you pick a player and the main goal is to win the Stanley Cup. So sometimes there's two different type of player. You have guys that are good at putting point on the board, and you have guys that are good at producing wins. And there's a pretty big difference between the two. And for Mavrik Bourque, and this is just my personal opinion, my feeling, I could be wrong on this, but I just felt like at times he kind of quit on the team and he was a bit more focused on his personal stat, having a good year for his draft year. There's time where he was not trying much defensively, and there's also consistency. There's time where he was looking like the best player in the world. I think he had a 7-point game, but there's also a big stretch of game where he was not doing much and the team was kind of collapsing when they needed him. So consistency is another thing that I'm really looking for, because NHL 82 game plus the playoff, it's huge, and you're gonna need player that you know what you're gonna get each and every night. If the guy goes on a cold streak during the playoff or something, I want player that I can count on each and every single game. Moving on, at number 27, we have another tall defenseman from Sweden, Helge Grans. And he's a player a little bit frustrating, because at time when he's on, he could be super impressive. We saw him toward the end of the year. In the SHL, he was on the power play, and he looked like a veteran out there, QBing the power play. And at 18 years old, pretty impressive in the SHL. But at time, he can have those brain fart or those big mistakes that can be costly. So he's a little bit tricky to evaluate. But at the end of the day, if we only focus on the offensive side of the game, I mean, there's a chance this guy is the defenseman that put up the most point in the old draft. So it's possible he become a 50-point player, number one QB on the power play. So if you get a defenseman like that late first round, I think everyone would be happy with that. He's also very solid with first pass, so the zone exit, and on top of that, he's got the size, he's got the reach, he's still young, still room to fill his body. Given the type of upside he has, I'd be really comfortable taking him at 27 and hoping that he fixed the mental mistake, and also being more consistent overall, because there's quite a big gap when he's playing good and when he's not, so that's why he's a bit more riskier. At number 26, we have Dylan Holloway, and this is a guy that I kind of slowly pushed toward the bottom of my first round. He was much higher than that earlier in the year, and he's a very interesting player. He's kind of an hybrid between a power forward and also a skill player. So if there's a team that wants to get a bit more toughness in their lineup, a guy that's not scared to throw his body around and also able to play with the skill guys, there's not many options to choose from this year. So he's kind of the only guy really that bring this type of game. He has all the tool, he has the shot, the stick handling, and also the skating. His skating is very impressive, a lot of power. You can tell he has strong legs. He's pretty mature physically as well, so he could jump in the NHL pretty quickly. The main reason why I decided to drop him in my ranking, first of all, he did not have a very good season, so very average. It was starting to get better toward the end, but early on he really struggled, and I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe the hockey IQ is not quite there. The instinct offensively, it's just average. Anyway, in the end, he's still a very safe pick. I think he's going to be a third line player, but above that, I'm not sure the hockey IQ, I'm not sure he processed the game at a high level enough to be an elite player. At number 25, I have the center, Jan Mysak from Czech Republic. And this is a guy that did really well at the World Junior Under 20 for his country, and also he finished the year in the OHL and he was pretty impressive. The thing that I like the most about him is that he's got a very good motor, and most of the game that I watch him, he's always pretty good. So he doesn't really have those bad games. He's got the consistency and he's very well rounded. I don't think there's much that he needs to improve in his game. It's just going to be a matter to elevate everything to another level, but really there's no big weaknesses in his game. Another interesting thing about his game would be the penalty killing. I thought he was one of the best in the draft on the penalty killing. He's looking to get some scoring opportunities even if they are a man down. He's also surprisingly fast on a straight line. Sometimes he was able to burn defensemen, catch them by surprise. It feels like he's got that extra gear that is able to create separation. So with all that package, that makes him a very safe pick. I would say the floor is really high with him. You can't really go wrong. He's gonna, at minimum, I think he's gonna be a third liner that's gonna be able to play on the penalty killing. The upside might be a bit moderate. There's not a ton of creativity in his game, and there's nothing really elite in his offensive game, but still he's gonna be an all-around third liner, I think, and with a slim chance to be maybe more than that. At number 24, I have Ozzy Wiesblatt, and toward the end of the year he was playing center, but I think in the NHL he's gonna be more right winger. And this is another guy, I don't know why there's not more people that have him in the first round. I think he's really good and is going maybe a little bit under the radar. Offensively, he brings a very solid package. The stick handling is almost elite. elite, as well as the shooting and playmaking ability. So very, very strong offensive-minded player. But on top of that, and this is what I like the most about him, it's just the compete level. He plays with emotion, he's consistent, he's in your face, he's physical, he's very solid on his feet, hard to push around, and he goes to war. He plays to win. So like I said earlier, I put a lot of emphasis on consistency, playing to win, playing with passion, stepping up when it matters, and he's really a team player. He doesn't play for his own personal stat. It's really the team first, and he's going to be there to defend his teammate and also making everyone around him better. All in all, he doesn't cheat on the ice, and he's checking pretty much all the boxes for me that matters. At number 23, I have probably my biggest surprise yet in my ranking, Dmitri Rashevky, the Russian, and I just love everything about his game. I think he's so skilled offensively. He's a total package. If we take the trifecta, the shooting, the stick handling, and the playmaking ability, I firmly believe that he's top 10 in terms of skill level offensively. The only problem is that he's an overager, and he's also from Russia. It's not the league that I'm the most confident with, so it's definitely a risky pick, but my philosophy is to focus a little bit more on the ceiling of the player. In the end, a third liner or a fourth liner, he's not gonna change your organization, but a guy like him that has a slim chance to be a first line player and even possibly an all-star player. So that's how I think his ceiling is, and I think it's perfectly fine to sprinkle a little bit of those picks like the high risk and high reward type of player. And the best comparison I would have to explain my thinking, and I'm not sure I told everyone about that, but I played online poker for a living for maybe 7 or 8 years, and I think a good example of what I'm trying to illustrate would be when you're playing a tournament. You always have those players that are really stressed. They want to make the money, and they're gonna let their stack bleed out and play really passively until they make the money. So yes, they might be good, they're gonna make the money a lot of the time, but the big money is at the top. So you need to take risk, build, stack, play more aggressively, and sometimes you're gonna go on a rampage, and this is how you get the big money. So it's the same thing with hockey in the draft. I feel like if your approach is a little bit too passive, you only take the safe player. Yes, your player might play a lot of game in the NHL, might look like you have a lot of success, but in reality, you're never gonna get the stud that you need to win a cup. Those big time player, you might miss on a few of them. Anyway, I think the best approach is to be pretty balanced. You don't want to be too passive, you don't want to be too crazy taking only risky player. But well, I digress a lot. Let's get back to the draft. Shout out to the poker player. Let's go to the pick number 22. At number 22, we have center Connor Zary, and he is one of the oldest player in the draft. I'm not sure if he's going to be a center at the NHL level, maybe more left winger in my opinion. I do like my center to have good playmaking ability, and I think this is the weakest part of his game. I think his vision needs a little bit of improvement. I'm also a tiny bit concerned about his skating ability. He's not the greatest skater out there technically. There's a few things he's going to need to work on his skating ability, but the good thing, he's got a very good motor, competes very hard, so his skating is not much of a problem since he worked really hard on the ice. He's also one of the best in the draft at putting a lot of shot on net. So he's got a pretty decent shot, not really elite, but he's putting so many shot on net that he's gonna score quite a lot of goal simply with the volume of shot. So I think it might be the case also at the NHL level. In terms of projection, I would say he's gonna be a tweener between second line and third line, but primarily on a third line. I don't think he's got enough offense in him, but still he's gonna be able to contribute from time to time on a second line. He's another very safe pick in my mind. The floor is really high, and he's also pretty close to the final product, so I'm expecting him to jump in the NHL pretty quickly. And speaking of safe pick, at number 21, we have Braden Schneider, a big, tall, right-handed defenseman, and he's a player with maybe limited upside because the offensive part of his game is not that strong. But like I said earlier, whenever I'm targeting a player with limited upside, I like them to be special in certain area of the game, and he's a player physically one of the most dominant in the draft. So this guy is a tank. He's also very solid defensively, nothing fancy in his game. You know what you're gonna get from him. He's able to lock down the front of the net in his zone. He's able to win battle down low in his zone. So he brings defense, and the way the NHL is trending right now, we're gonna start to see a lot more offensive minded, maybe smaller defensemen, and he's just the perfect partner to play with those guys. And on top of that, he's so mature already physically. He's the type of guy that could jump right away in the NHL. So if a team needs help immediately and are stuck against the cap, wink wink, we're looking at you, Toronto Maple Leaf. He could be a really good fit to play with a guy like Morgan Riley, for example, Rasmus Sandin. So he's kind of your stay-at-home, old-school type of defenseman. This type of defenseman 10 years ago would have go really high in the draft, I think. I still think he's going to go high, but now maybe teams are a bit more worried about the lack of offense. He's not going to be a black hole offensively. He's still going to be able to chip in a little bit. And another good thing for him, usually the big, strong, physical defensemen, they were lacking the skating ability a little bit and also the first pass. But with him, he's able to skate pretty fast in a straight line, and also the first pass is pretty decent. He's not the type of defenseman that's going to always chip the puck on the board, on the window. He's able to make a good and accurate first pass, and also brings quite a bit of leadership, and you can tell he's the type of player that's going to step up in the playoff. So all in all, there's quite a bit to like with him, and I think at 21, it's a perfectly fine pick, even though I feel like the upside is a little bit limited. This is it for this episode. I've decided to cut this short and do a 3-part mini series, so hopefully I'm going to be able to do part 2 next week. Make sure to subscribe, click on the little bell thing if you don't want to miss the next part, and finally, don't be shy, write down in the comment if, let's say, there's a pick you do not agree with. That's the fun thing with the draft. We all have different opinion, certain things that we value more than other people. Anyway, this is it for this one. See you on the next episode. Bye.